All right. Hey, we did decide who's hosting, right?
Yeah,
That's
Flegs.
me right here.
Flegs. All right. Just don't be awkward. And here we go.
You are now tuned in to this week's episode of our podcast. Today we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in our field. By sharing our collective expertise, we will show you how to harness, control, and use your own skill set to achieve ultimate success and live the life you want. And now, please welcome your host.
Welcome on back to the Anomalies. Thank you for joining us tonight, powered by the Iron Ostrich Network. My name is Flegs at JJ Flegel. We got with us tonight, we got Marco at K Pasa Primo and super producer Tyler Allen. And of course, a guest we've been hoping to get on for quite some time and quite honestly provide some talent to our show. We have Ryan Niemiller, the Cripple Threat 8 on Twitter. Thank you.
How we doing, guys? That intro was a lot more professional and fancy than I was anticipating. Most podcasts, though, that was very nice.
Yeah.
Only the best. Only the best.
Apparently, I'm here to enrich the lives of your listeners. That's very that was beautiful.
Hey, if you
what?
enrich
People
ours,
get enriched in many different ways. So
I'm gonna enrich you guys so good,
so hard.
so hard. Oh man, you're gonna beg me to stop.
So Ryan, we'll just start off. We'll ask you a couple questions. But first off, I went to your website, did a little homework, tried to be a good host. You have by far one of the greatest logos of all time. It's a Jurassic Park theme logo. How did you come up with that guy?
So I used to always do weird like dinosaur impressions just based on anatomy. I just always thought it was funny, and I always used to joke even when I was like in high school and stuff. I just joked like it'd be funny if I tried to do like shadow puppets, and I came up with two, and they were both the exact same thing. It was doing this. It's either a dinosaur or a swan. It just depends on the company I'm with, whichever is more appropriate. With my fancy theater friends, it was swan. With everybody else, it was dinosaur. And I just always thought it was funny. And I had this idea. I did a show randomly. I don't know. This was probably 9 years ago or so at this point. It's been a while. And my buddy who booked me, my friend, he's a funny comic named Dan West, who's out of Indiana. The girl he was dating at the time, that girl's sister had just gotten out of college for graphic design, and she was looking for stuff for her portfolio. So I was like, oh, I've always kind of had this idea. I thought it'd be kind of funny. You know, you want to give it a shot? I mean, I can throw you a few bucks. She crushed it for like right out of the gate. That was the first draft, is what it was now. It was brilliant. I could not have been any happier with how that came out. And I've made a lot of money off it by selling stickers over the years. So that's.
do you guys still talk?
If I well, me and Dan do. He's no longer dating that girl. So that would probably be weird. But I'm still technically friends with him. I'm sure if I reached out to her and you know, asked for something else, she'd do. I think she just kind of is a mom now and just doing her own real life thing.
That's still cool though. Like, you know, she's got to see it. Like, well, so for anybody listening that doesn't know, and obviously if you're listening, you're here for Ryan. So you were the third place on America's Got Talent season 14.
Yes. The third most talented person in this country.
Third most talented person in this country on that day on that channel.
Yes, based on one fun but weird talent show where they put comedians against magicians, against sword swallowers, against dogs.
Choirs? A whole choir?
Choirs, yeah. Yeah, it's one of the like I loved my experience on there, and obviously it's changed my life, and getting third place is an amazing feat to do because it's all like audience vote, and like that's crazy to me. But like I didn't put a whole lot of stock in like I just wanted to make the finals. Like that was kind of my goal. Because at a certain point, it's like, okay, how do you compare a comic to a singer, to a choir, to a like they're not remotely the same. So I was just happy to be there. It worked out pretty well for me.
Well, inevitably, it grew your name.
Yes.
And so we all became fans because of we all kind of came together because of Pat McAfee.
Yes.
So when you were going through everything, they would have you on the show, and then so we all got a chance to see it as it was happening, and it just seems like as soon as that was done, if we followed your social media, you were started just booking dates after that, like every weekend.
Yeah, I mean, AGT is one of the well. First of all, before I get to that, I do want to give a big thank you to Pat. So I was able to be a part of the show because our mutual friend Todd, Todd McComas, who I've known Todd
right here.
Exactly, that handsome boy. So I've known Todd since he started comedy. Like, I think I was literally at his third ever open mic ever. That's how long we've kind of known each other.
That's awesome.
When I was doing that run, I was still living in Indianapolis at the time. I live in California now, but I was still in Indy, which is where McAfee and all that's still based. So they had me come down a couple of times. As much of a rub as like Chris Jericho was for me, I would argue that I got a lot of votes based off of McAfee. Just being on that show, because the show kind of has a reputation, at least back then, it had a little bit of a reputation of being a little bro-y. Like, that just kind of, and I'm not saying that in a negative context. Just
I was a regular caller of his show when he was with Barstool on Sirius.
Okay.
So trust me, we understand.
Yeah. But I will say one thing about like him and his fans, like they are a loyal bunch.
Yes.
Like obviously more people know me from AGT that come to shows, but at least 2 or 3 people every comedy weekend I do were like, "Hey, I heard you on McAfee. I saw you, I saw you on there." So like, it made a big difference in that whole voting process. And then getting those dates. AGT is one of the last kind of for comedy anyway. It's one of the last kind of instant credits, I guess. Where it used to be like you go on the Tonight Show, you have a good set, Johnny lets you sit down, you're made.
Sure.
Those kind of late night shows, like they're cool. I would love to be on the Tonight Show as a personal goal, but it doesn't really move the needle the same way. AGT, it helps. It just blows you up right away. You do well on that show, it is instant. It was fun, but a little scary with how quick that happened.
Well, especially when they put the image of your Twitter handle or whatever it may be. Like, I know all of us probably started following you right as when you went on Pat's show, because I remember that time. It was great. Like, your episodes when you're on there it was hilarious. Like, all the stories, and then getting to be we were kind of on that ride with you, watching, and then but also being a fan of Pat's show. So
yeah, cool. It was. I wish I had recorded it when it happened. So when the first audition aired, so you film that first audition maybe 2-3 months ahead of when it actually goes on the air. So I knew the night it was going to be on. I just went to my sister's house. I didn't make a big deal of it because like they don't tell you what the edit's going to look like. Obviously, I knew I did well. I was there, but they don't tell you what the story's going to be like, because they can sort of edit it the way they want to. Sure. So I was still a little like kind of nervous about it. So I just laid low. I was just at my sister's house. We just had dinner, made it very simple. But like the second that 7 minutes was over, my computer, like I couldn't use my computer for about 8 hours because it was just
that's awesome
with just like notifications and like it was a really cool. It made me, if you ever get on a show like that, silence your notifications and stuff ahead of time because it'll
just crash.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. And I also, for my personal profile, I forgot to change my name. So I have like a fan page and I have my own personal one. I forgot to change the name, so I was getting bombarded. So like my real life friends and family who I was wanting to like, prioritize, right. I couldn't find those messages because it was like, "Oh, you're great, you're amazing." It's like, it's crazy how fast it is.
I was gonna say, because we were talking about Todd, I got a chance to go see him last weekend, I believe it was. Him and Chris Bowers were together. I'll tell you right now, that dude, I know you said you saw him during his third set or whatever it was, and you got to see him grow throughout the years, but he crushed that room that day. It was awesome. Like, and I got to see him do stand up, a handful of times, but it was in some little North Vernon, I don't know what it was.
Yep, North Vernon.
Yeah, little Elks Lodge, the stage was like a foot and a half off the ground, you know.
Oh, I love
But
those
he
shows. I miss those.
he just leveled that room. It was great. And what was it like? How quick was he able to like get from nothing to where he was holding his own?
I mean, it's a process. The one advantage he had a couple advantages. For starters, he got into comedy relatively late, as far as like age wise goes. Like there's no comedy is an ageless sport. You can do it whenever the hell you want. But the majority of people who start comedy, it's a 18 to 24. Like that's kind of when you start. Like that's when he had 20 some years of cop experience already. Like he had already had he had an existence. He had a life already. And when you start something like like he already knew how to work hard. He already had set his mind to it. Like he knew he wanted to do. So like, did he suck early on? Of course, because we all suck when we first start. That's how comedy works. Nobody nails it right out of the park. But like it was one of those things that like I could tell he was going to be really good right away because he wanted to be good at it. And that's kind of like part of the biggest thing. Comedy is one of those things that obviously there's some natural talent that helps people go along. Like there's a skill set, but like you can't not get better if you work at it. Every time you go on stage, you're going to get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. So he busted his ass. So it didn't take long before I felt like he was competent at the very least, and now he's a killer.
Sure.
So
Taking notes,
awesome.
Marco.
No, I'm just curious. Like we're all huge fans of comedy. I feel like I try to see as much live comedy as I can. Within the last 6 months, like Nate Bargatze, Steve Byrne. I saw Bert for the second time. So, we try to make our rounds. We all do. And
The only thing I say that is it's kind of been a running joke because I think me and Tanner have been the only couple that have actually done 5 minutes. I fantastically bombed. But
welcome. You're a comic now.
we've been egging Marco to go find an open room and give him a go at 5 minutes, but he's just always been reluctant to.
Do it to put hair on your chest, my friend. You got to do it.
I've been trying to shave that down.
March of 2020. So if
COVID happened.
So what you're saying is you started a global pandemic just because you were too much of a coward.
Yes, absolutely.
To do it.
It's his bitch
to go up
fault.
there and do 5 minutes. So you were like, I'll just kill millions worldwide because I'm too much of a coward to tell my dick jokes.
This is a conspiracy theory. You're gonna get us kicked off Spotify.
No,
nobody listens to us on Spotify anyway.
No. Here's the thing with comedy, though. It's impossible to be racist or say anything inappropriate because everything a comedian says, without question, is makes you a champion of free speech, and you're just fighting for the First Amendment. Yep. So no matter what we say, it doesn't matter, guys. It's always comedy.
So you're from Indiana. Indiana surprisingly has some very, very large names in comedy, including yourself, Jim Gaffigan, David Letterman. Miss Pat is now here in Indiana, although I think she's moving back to Atlanta. But Mick Foley is from there
he's
as
from
well.
Originally from Bloomington. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have, number one, do you reject Indiana as like your hometown, or do you appreciate growing up in the?
No. This is 100%. It's going to sound a little pandery, but it's the truth. If my wife didn't have a job that she already had vested, like retirement and pension and all that here in California, I would still live in Indiana. It wasn't fair for me to have her quit her job and lose all that when I can literally do this from anywhere.
Right.
But I've always loved performing. You joke a little bit like, you went to see him in Mount Vernon and stuff like that. Like, I love performing in places like that. LA is fun. New York is fun. I don't want to claim it's not, but they don't who cares if I'm there? They can see Chappelle. They can see Dave Attell. They can.
Do you feel like they're comedy snobs?
What's that?
Are they comedy snobs?
I don't even know if they're comedy snobs, but they don't realize how good they have it.
Yeah,
because for them it's just a normal day. Like any day you can go to the Comedy Store or the Improv and Dane Cook's there and I mean I did a show a year into comedy where Robin Williams just randomly showed up and did a drop-in set. So it's that can happen there. So they get a little spoiled. It's not that they don't appreciate comedy or don't like comedy. Like they'll still laugh at stuff, but you don't feel special there because they can see anybody any night of the week they want. When you go to a place like Mount Vernon or like Owensboro, Kentucky, and places like that, they're just so happy you're there. Like, I'm convinced some of these small towns I performed over the years, I could have been elected mayor if I just stuck around because they're so happy that you just came. So, like, those crowds, again, you're probably not going to get discovered, someone from Hollywood, like the booker for the Tonight Show is not going to randomly be in Mount Vernon, but those people are going to make you feel like a superstar and like a champ. I love performing in places like that.
You also have ties to some degree, obviously, to the WWE, and like you're a fan and all that. Have you ever reached out to Mick Foley or talked to him about like his transition into kind of more comedy now, or like had any conversations like that? Because I don't know, I just see that as like such a cool little opportunity to like cross those two, passions of yours.
Yeah, I've never got a chance to meet Mick. Every time that he's kind of been closest to any place I've been performing, I'm always on the road performing elsewhere. It's one of the quote unquote bad things. Like the more that now that I'm like a national headliner that gets to work, I don't get to see other headlining comics because I'm also working. You don't cross paths nearly as much. I would love to meet Mick. I'm glad that he kind of went back to storytelling. And telling a lot of like wrestling stories. I had heard early on, and I appreciated the effort when he was first starting stand up. He was like, I'm gonna do jokes about my wife, and isn't that like he was trying to not be the wrestler guy. But sometimes you just got to know what your strong suit is. That'd be like if I never mentioned my arms, like not once. Like no, that's something that makes me unique. Why would I not talk about it ever? And that was the kind of thing. He's a great storyteller. He's obviously very smart. He's a very charismatic guy. I hope you get a chance to meet him and kind of work with him a little bit, but I've not had that opportunity just yet. I did do comedy with Rob Van Dam for a little bit, though. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
When he had left WWE, like, mid 2000s, when he had his pot bust and all that kind of stuff, and he kind of left and he was like branching out, I kind of was helping him write like a pilot and do some stand up with him. Rob's a good dude. He was funny if you knew who he was. Like that was kind of the only problem with it. You had to have a very strong, database in your brain of Rob Van Dam facts, to really get everything. But he's a cool dude. We still talk every once in a while now, and it's been 15 years. He's a good guy.
So on that tour, did you ever consider like having him just come up and just like body slam you through a table to introduce yourself or something?
No, not at all. I trained to be a wrestler for 2 months, and I got that out of my system real fast. That was it turned out it's painful. And one of the things we filmed the pilot, and it was horrible. Like the whole I could get into that later, but like the whole production was really shitty. But it was like Rob Van Dam's Extreme Championship Comedy, and they did do a bit like that. With Zoltan, if you know Zoltan Kazis, he's a San Diego guy. He's won like San Francisco Comedy Festival. I've known him since I basically started. One of the bits they did is when like the wrestlers invaded the comedy show, they put Rob and Sabu put Zoltan through the table and gave him a concussion, so he doesn't remember even taping any of that. so yeah, no, you're not going to put me through a table to start a comedy show. That is not that's not going to end well.
I'll say, what if you end it that way?
Yeah. Oh yeah, end it. Yeah. Especially if I bombed, and that way hopefully I don't remember that it happened. Just give me some brain trauma, and I won't even know that I sucked.
Yeah. Well, CTE never hurt, your comedy career.
Yeah, and it's never hurt anyone in the history of CTE. Like, no, there's been no negative consequences whatsoever to severe brain injuries.
Just make a softer helmet. It's fine.
That's all. Yeah. When men were men and they just had leather helmets and then killed themselves afterwards. Hey, that was real football.
Who's your favorite? Your favorite hang as far as other comedians that you've had a chance to hang with?
Ooh. Trying to think. It's hard. That's hard to say because and this is more on me. I am not a hang guy.
Oh.
So like that was the thing.
You work and get out.
Basically, yeah. So Bowers, ironic, he's the one that coined me the most boring person in comedy. So when he used to own Morty's, kind of back in the day there, and Bowers and I are good friends. We get along really well. But since I don't drink, I don't party, I don't do anything like that, what I do is I go to the show, I do my set, I'm very friendly with everybody, I'll say my goodbyes, and then when they're like, hey, when Bowers would be like, we're going to the house, we're all going to get drunk, I'm like, no, I'm going home. I got things to do. So I've always been bad at the hang, and it's because I'm boring. That's who I am. But I really am. I am very boring. When everyone
I have to tell you did yourself a favor, because Bowers, I was not so lucky that night. I was stuck having to be his ride, and we were stuck in the Elks Lodge until I don't remember what time. It was Bowers kept us out late. So
Bowers is a bad man. I love him dearly, but man, I could not even possibly begin to keep up with what he does. So that's why it's like, hey, good to see you, Bowers. I'm going home. I got video games to play. Like that. That's the nerd stuff I do. Even when I'm on the road, like you guys can kind of see behind me. This is about a third of my video game collection.
A third?
Yeah.
Guesstimate how many games you have just in physical copy alone.
Physical copy, I have 3,300. About 3,324. I just looked at it today because I have a database for it. Whoa. So that's my thing. When I was on the road, a lot of comics, and I'm not knocking anyone that does this, but a lot of comics, they party, they might try to get laid, they're looking for they're doing kind of that sort of stuff. I've never done any of that. So when I'm in places like Tulsa where I don't know anybody and I'm there for 4 days, I just started going to like video game stores, like finding little mom and pop, like brick and mortar shops, and just see what I could find. And then luckily AGT happened where I have actual money is what it's called. So
money helps you buy things.
It does. So I can buy the way that my poor wife, I don't think she knew quite what she was getting into. So during the pandemic, when everything shut down and I was out of work for a while, that's when I moved out here to California because we didn't want to spend, months and months apart. So I rented a U-Haul and she was like, oh, is that for your stuff? I'm like, no, it's basically just for my video game collection. Like, that's what I needed the U-Haul for. So she knew I collected. She knew I had a lot of games. But until she actually saw the unloading process, I think that's when she went, oh, shit. Okay.
This is the real Ryan. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think I can hold my own. In my house, I have a regular NES, a Super Nintendo, 64, a Sega, PS4, Xbox One, and 2 Oculus.
Okay, not too shabby.
Yeah, what's your rundown? I mean,
And I got NBA Jam Tournament Edition on Sega.
Attaboy.
I can safely say that there's at least a Switch because there's a whole slew. There's 3 shelves worth of at least what it looks like games.
Yeah, so I have 11 Switches, 11 different ones right now. So.
Oh, that's a whole new definition or a whole new way of saying hitting switches.
Yeah, I'm a collector. I like doing that. I love checklists. Like that's something that's like, especially so when I collect like retro stuff. All the retro they've already been released, so I have this definitive list of everything I need to hunt, and then I can go on the hunt. I love as much as I love playing games, and I play stuff all the time. I have 2 different game rooms. I have this one. The retro room is across the hall there. I have like an old CRT. For when I do Twitch streaming, I have a little CRT right here that I stream off of.
Tyler, calm down, buddy.
I say here's I played some Ken Griffey Jr. baseball not that long ago.
Oh yeah.
It's just my thing. I love it.
Does your wife use the listing against you? Like, does she make like this giant grocery list and just send you to the grocery store and you're just able to check stuff off and you all?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. We have like notes on our phone that we share with each other so that we know like what we need and stuff. I operate better that way. If you leave me to my own devices, I am all over the place. But having those lists gives me something very clear cut of what I need to look for and do. So I enjoy it. And the way that I sort of justify it in my head and I'm fully aware I'm just bullshitting myself. This is what addicts do to themselves. In theory, I could resell this. So like if my wife needs a kidney, there's actual value here. So
it's an investment.
Yeah, yeah. I say, is the investment why I collect? No, 100% not. Let's not kid ourselves. I do it because it's fun and it's a cool way to brag to other nerds about how much I have. But in theory, if there was a tragedy, I'm sitting on a lot of stuff that I can move relatively quickly. That actually has some. That's the thing. You go out and party and get drunk, you can have a good time. You can't resell that booze. I can resell this stuff.
Good call.
That's very true.
So what's an obscure game that you just enjoy playing that, like you hear Ken Griffey or whatever? Like, what's something that's kind of off the wall that you really just enjoy?
I can show you one right now. It's one of the newest things I just picked up, and it's also the most valuable game in my entire collection now. And it's going to horrify you a little bit because the cover art is one of the weirdest things ever. It's called Panic Restaurant.
Okay.
For the
NES.
NES.
For the original NES. It's a really fun game.
Yep.
It was a late NES title, so the Super Nintendo was already out at that point. So it didn't get a lot of publicity. It didn't got no marketing behind it whatsoever. As a result, it didn't sell very well. It's a really fun, weird platforming game. That cart alone is about $1,100.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, so
that rare.
yeah, so it's one of those. One of my buddies who I met, who was just a fan from AGT, and we just became buddies. He collects too, so he helps me find stuff when he's kind of out and about. He got me a good deal on that because he stumbled upon one.
Nice.
Wow.
So he already has one then.
Yes, so this was his second one.
Okay.
Because he stumbled upon one. He's a little more hardcore than I am with collecting anything is hard. Like when you start getting, if you're a casual collector of anything, no matter what it is, sports cards, video games, whatever it might be, you can just get them as you kind of go along and have fun. The hardcore collectors are ruthless, man. It is insane. So I have a buddy who has a pretty famous video game collection. He's been featured in a couple documentaries and stuff. Every time he posts anything that he's like looking for or found, he'll get 40 messages from like these scavengers who are like, I'll make you a cash offer right now. I want that. Give me that right now. Give me like every all day, every day. He just gets messages and like people just email him. I want to buy that. What did you just sell for? Let me get that. Let me get a hold of that. It's like you have to be a hawk, man. It's just like I just like to have cool stuff. You're never gonna have the biggest collection of anything ever. It's just I just enjoy it. But I don't have it in me to like be that guy who's like, because those people will like take advantage of little old ladies who don't like, oh, this was my dead son's video games, and like, oh, that's worth nothing. That's like, I'll give you $10. I'll get rid of those for you, and it's like thousands of dollars. Like those people are just scumbags. I can't live with myself being that kind of guy.
If you had to collect one thing that's not considered nerdy, what would it be?
That's not considered nerdy.
Mm-hmm.
You got something in mind for yourself, Marco? What would you collect?
I was gonna say,
I'm just saying because I could ask him if he could collect anything other than video games. He'd probably give me 100 answers, but it would all be nerdy shit. I want to see if he can give me something that's not nerdy that he would collect.
Well, I think nerdy is relative in a certain
okay.
In a certain set.
Yeah,
because like
baseball cards, but
yeah, because I know it's generally more acceptable to be like a car guy. But I think people who are like Jay Leno's a fucking car nerd, you know.
Sure.
Like I don't care
Sure.
what you say. Like it's a high end thing, and a lot of people like cars and stuff, so it's considered cooler or whatever. But that guy's a dork when it comes to cars, and I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking it, but that guy collects cars the same way that I look at video games. He's like, oh, I need to get, it's the same mentality. It's like the old cliche joke of like, fantasy football is Dungeons and Dragons for jocks. Like it's the same kind of thing. It's numbers and stats, and I got to research and I'm putting up together my mock drafts, and it's the same shit. It's just this one's acceptable, quote unquote, and this one's for nerds. Like
I stand corrected.
Yeah,
but can we all agree that Magic the Gathering cards are nerdier?
I mean, Magic the Gathering cards are something I wish I cared about. I'd be sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars if I liked it as a kid.
My kid, my son turns 12 on Saturday or Sunday, and he collects Pokemon cards. So that's what he's been doing with his money. And I take him to a card store, and I legitimately have to sit back and let him negotiate whatever he's doing, and I just have to trust that my 11-year-old kid knows enough about these cards to buy. Because I'm like, shit, I don't know, man. I don't have a Decker sports book to tell you how much this card's worth.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this, and I would argue this for anything, no matter what it might be. I don't care what it is. I don't trust people who can't tell you what their hobby is right away. Like if I ask you like what do you do for fun? Like what do you enjoy? If you can't tell me that, you're a sociopath and you frighten me. Because life is way too much of a pain in the ass. It's too short, it's too scary. Like the real world sucks. If you don't have one thing, at least one thing that you like for no other reason than it just makes you happy and lets you forget about life for a little bit, I feel really bad for you. Like I don't care what it is. If you like reading, just read. It doesn't always have to be to, enhance your career or better yourself. Just read. If you read trashy romance novels, hell yes, enjoy.
He's talking to you, Bree.
Yeah.
My girl. That's hers.
I was gonna say because it hurts nobody. I never understand, and this comes from being a lifelong pro wrestling fan. I was a big fan of pro wrestling before it became cool. Like I started liking wrestling between the Hulk Hogan era and before the Attitude Era when it was just really dorky. And I got shit on so much. I can't fathom people who like it's your hobby. When people make fun of you for just a thing you do for fun, that person's an asshole, and I hope bad things happen to them.
How bad is it if your primary hobby is talking to a bunch of idiots you met on the internet from all across the country once a week and recording it and putting it on the internet?
I mean, I think it's a little douchey. I'm not gonna lie to you, but but hey, have fun. If you want to hang out with your idiot loser friends, by all means.
Well, I'm the primary idiot on this
there you
one
go,
for sure. So
I was gonna say you spoke about cars. Is the Yaris still in play?
No, my poor sweet Yaris. My Yaris actually. This could have been a much more tragic story. My Yaris, I got destroyed by a semi, in the summer that I was on AGT. So I was.
Shit.
I was down in Atlanta. I was driving down there. I think at this point my first audition had aired. I already knew that I made it through to the live shows because they already recorded the judge cuts as well. But I was down in Atlanta doing a show with my buddy Samuel J. Comroe, who was a comedian who was on AGT the year before me. So I've known him for 10 plus years. He's a comedian. He has Tourette's, so we're kind of both part of the cripple comedy community with that. And I was just driving to go on there, and I was it was just like kind of bumper to bumper traffic, and I sort of had switched lanes to get because I had to like exit pretty soon. The semi just did not slow down in time. Luckily, he paid attention enough to slow down some, or I would have been just completely destroyed. Because it turns out a Yaris is not very good at protecting you from a semi, in case anyone's curious. But yeah, just smashed it up good. And he was kind of a dick about it. He tried to blame me for it immediately. But joke was on him because
kiss my Yaris.
Yeah, one of my best jokes from the finals of AGT was making fun of that asshole. So,
attaboy. That's shit.
That's what you call a comeback.
Yeah, my poor Yaris is dead. I now have a Nissan Sentra.
Oh.
It has a backup cam, so I can see when semis are barreling down at me. Yeah.
So I've got an off-the-wall question, just a little bit. So if you think about where you live now and the type of house you live in now, but you're looking at upgrading just a little bit, maybe getting a little more space, but you find this place that has a really, really good deal, and it's surprisingly cheap, and it's a nice place, a little bit nicer than you have now. And you come to find out there's some kind of heinous crime, like Jeffrey Dahmer murdered and ate his people in this house. Is that something you would be willing to do? Would you buy that house that something just absolutely heinous happened in?
Yes, but with a small caveat. It depends on how famous the crime was. Because like for
I want no
instance,
bullshit crime.
yeah, and the only reason I say that it's not like I'm looking for a murder house, but the people who are really into that kind of stuff will like come there. Like my buddy, when I first moved out to LA, like 06, 07, my buddy lived like about a block and a half down the street from where the O.J. Simpson murders took place.
Oh shit!
And it's not like they advertised this was the murder place, but like everybody knew it was. So at any given time, you're gonna see 4 or 5 people taking pictures outside. You know, it was like it's that kind of famous. You know, so
did they ever catch the guy who did that?
No, they did not. They had they only read OJ's book describing how someone would have done it, they could have followed those clues to find the real murderer. I mean, he said he wouldn't rest until he found the real killer. So now that he's out of jail, he's back on the hunt, I imagine.
I'm sure he has a hand in it.
Yeah. I was the whole thing. I was like, no gloves ever fit. How is this? This is ridiculous. How are you going to convict somebody about no gloves? Yeah, no gloves fit.
Oh shit.
So in theory, if there was a crime at the house, like I'm not someone who believes in like ghosts or like I for me, I just don't care about that personally. But if it is famous enough where people are gonna like do pilgrimages, you know, to see the murder house, I wouldn't want to live there just because I don't want people taking pictures of my house all day.
Well, and you gotta wonder what kind of people those are as well. Like, if they're willing to like go out of their way to go find some obscure house just because something crazy happened, you don't want to be.
Can you imagine
those people?
Do you guys know what happened to the lady that owns the house from Breaking Bad? Does everybody else know the story?
I do not.
Have you watched the show?
I have not yet. No.
Oh, so there's this famous scene. It's not ruining anything. It's no spoiler alerts. But so the house that Walter White and his family live in is in Albuquerque, and there's a scene where he gets really pissed off and he throws this pizza and it ends up landing up on this garage roof. So I guess that so many people had went and done it and taken pictures that this lady had to fucking put an entire fence around her whole property so people would stop fucking throwing pizzas on her roof.
Yep. People are fucking weird, man. Like, because that's the thing. That one's a little more harmless. Like, but it's still irritating.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want strangers there. Like the closest I had to that, I lived in Evansville, Indiana, for a little bit, and I was 2 blocks away from the Roseanne house, and I was like, that's kind of it was cool to go see it once, you know, like kind of just walk. I wasn't taking pictures, but I walked by and I was like, oh yeah, because I loved the show. So that's like neat that like all that was right there. But yeah, that's the thing. I don't want people.
Wait, I'm sorry. The first edition or the second edition?
I have not seen any of the second before Roseanne tragically passed away.
Oh, that was so ridiculous. Speaking of freedom of speech.
Yeah, I mean, like the whole comedians are some of the softest human beings on the planet. They just are.
So how hard is that for you being in LA? Because it's obviously known as like the softest city on earth, softer than a bag of milk. So how do you navigate the softness?
I don't know. I would argue that just it's the comedy world that's soft. Because comics in New York and Texas are whining just as much about I'm being No, you're being criticized. That's different. I'm getting so tired of seeing comedians who are selling out 10,000 person arenas whining about being canceled. No, some people just criticized you and didn't like what you put out. You're still allowed to do your job. You didn't go to jail. The government didn't shut you down. Like people are like Rogan, like, oh, they're trying to shut him down. His $100 million check still cashed, didn't it?
Right.
Shut the fuck up, you.
And he just got the other offer. Like he's doing. Nobody needs to worry about Rogan. He's doing fine. Oh yeah,
he's canceled. He's so canceled. Shut up, people. Like the bigger you get, you're going to get criticism. And where were people defending when he canceled Mencia? Huh? Where was the where were the free speech things there? Like I know it's a little different because it was like joke theft or whatever, but like. They loved Rogan when he was doing the canceling, but and he's not even canceled. He's just people are pissed at him, which they're allowed to be. I've always thought that about comedy. Like, if I tell a joke and you're offended by it, it is not my place to tell you you're wrong because I don't know your history. I don't know what might personally upset you. I have people who have come up to me and like I'll make an arm joke about myself. I'm the victim in the joke. I'm not punching down. I'm talking to me. And they're offended because they have a handicapped child who they haven't come to terms with that yet, and it's still like triggering to them. So
That's
they'll
this
tell
whole
me,
thing.
and that's the thing. They're not wrong to be offended because their life experience is something I don't know. But then I look at the joke objectively and I go, okay, no, that is that person's issue. However, if you're a white comic and you start saying the N-word a lot and everyone's pissed off, guess what? Now it's your fault. You fucked up because your joke is more offensive than it is funny. If one person gets offended, it's one person being offended. If everybody's pissed off about it, it's not a free speech thing anymore. You're allowed to legally say it. You're just a shitty comic who couldn't write a good joke. That is the difference. It makes me so. Comics are so fucking soft. We're the whiniest bunch of people. Oh, but some people didn't like my special, and I can't use racial slurs anymore. Your libtards are so weak. Shut up. Just write a better joke. Fucking moron.
Well,
I feel like you were holding back a little bit. You need to tell us how you really feel.
It's just, and that's not even a thing, because like even comics that I don't think are necessarily fun. I don't want people canceled. Like I don't think Rogan needs to be put in jail and deplatformed from everything, even if I think a lot of what he says is nonsense. But that's my own personal opinion. I don't think he needs to be canceled. But like, if it's problematic, we're enough that like it's all financial. You know, like they had to pull a bunch because he kept saying the N-word during podcasts. And of course Spotify is going to take that down because it starts affecting the bottom line. That's not censorship, though. You're not allowed to say whatever. It's freedom of speech, not freedom from consequence. And people forget that so often. You can say whatever the hell you want. Rogan's not going to jail. He's not going to be imprisoned for his thoughts right now. But he's not obligated to have this $100 million platform where he can say whatever the hell he wants. That's not how life works. It's not how it's ever worked.
Well, and on top of that, like, you hear about people getting canceled probably primarily on Twitter, right? Well, there's 1 in 5 Americans on Twitter. So it gets such a small, just like little terrible community that lives on Twitter trying to, just do something to make it go viral. And it's like, out in the real world, a lot of people just don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Because like comedians don't get canceled. No, they don't. No, it's not a real thing. It does not exist. It doesn't. You're going to get backlash or whatever, and maybe people pile on to you. But being canceled, Louis C.K. still doing shows.
Hey, Shane Gillis is killing it.
Yeah, Shane Gillis is more successful than he's ever been. He just didn't get a Saturday Night Live job. He wasn't canceled. He just didn't get a job. I don't get jobs all the time. Doesn't mean I'm being canceled. It's like, but and I don't know Shane personally. I don't know. I don't comment anything on that. I don't know him, but like that dude sells out everywhere now. He's killing it. He's not canceled. And in fairness, I don't think he's going out saying I'm so canceled or anything like that. But he wasn't canceled. He just lost a job because he did some dumb shit, and now he's fine. Like, it's okay. It's fine. The people who actually get canceled are real ass people. It's somebody who works at an insurance company who gets drunk and tweets the N-word. That person's canceled. That guy, because he doesn't have a fan base.
Flegs. Flegs works for an insurance company. And he lives in Indiana.
Yeah. I'll say this right now. If you say some ignorant shit right now, Flegs, you're canceled. If I say some ignorant shit, I just apologize and then go back to telling dick jokes.
No, I try to be pretty careful about that.
Oh,
I do work in insurance.
Yeah, real people need to worry about being canceled. Comedians do not. Quit pretending it's a thing. It's not.
Just be funny.
Be every joke you tell needs to be, like, I always use this. If my joke has to be at least 51% funny. If it's more offensive than it is funny, it's a bad joke. Oh. It can be a dark joke.
That's a great formula.
It can push the limits, but it has to get, because I in my hour I have some groaner jokes. I have some jokes about, like, my arms are this way because my mom drank when she was pregnant with me. Some stuff that's like, offensive or could like offend some people. but the joke gets more laughs than it does groans. So it can stay. If your joke gets nothing but pisses people off, then get rid of it. It's not a good joke.
Nice.
So that's a terrific formula. Like,
Yeah.
People overthink this shit. Like they do. Everyone wants to pretend. Like all these comics, like, oh, we're the last truth tellers, or we're like making the. No, just tell your dick jokes and get paid and go home. Shut up. Like we're not all modern day philosophers. Like, stop it. Comedy is important. I don't want to downplay like entertainment and be able to take people's minds off of stuff is very important. But like, quit pretending you're fucking Gandhi. You're not. You tell jokes about your shits. It's not that big a deal. This got a little deeper than I was thinking.
No, hey, this is what we do. This is what we do.
We
bring out some truth.
Yeah,
but
we also bring out the dick jokes at times
yeah.
too.
Yeah, I almost need like a dick joke palate cleanser right now.
Well,
but like comedy comes from a dark place. Like a lot of comedians talk about how and for you, obviously, you talked about it already, that you have to talk. Like it would be a disservice to not talk about your arms. So the fact that obviously comes from a traumatic, experience or whatever it was, it's like you have to embrace the darkness also.
Yeah, I mean 100%. Like it's most. I'm not gonna say there's no comics that have ever been successful that didn't have a messed up childhood or whatever, but like that's generally the formula. You have some sort of trauma in your life. For me, it was having a disability. Like I think I've made the best of it and I'm good with it now. But the way I always kind of describe my disability is like, man, if this was a video game create-a character, this is not the model I would have chosen when the game started. Having a disability sucks a lot of times. Like when I was like doing comedy, like in the early stages when I was barely making money, I could never find good day jobs because people don't want to hire a dude with weird arms. I would have trouble dating because nobody wants to date a dude with weird arms because like it's hard to explain to your friends and family that you're dating the handicap. Like there's a lot of negative stuff. I get kids still say shit to me all the time. I get stared at in public. People help me with things that I didn't ask them for help with. It's humiliating. It doesn't mean like I'm totally put together. There's a lot of shit that comes with it. I just was luckily able to channel it in a more positive direction. That's helped me buy $1,100 video games. So that was very beneficial for me.
Cashing in. No, I just asked. So, my girlfriend, she is hard of hearing. She wears a hearing aid in both ears, and she sometimes like. It seems like she doesn't want me to like some. Sometimes I have to. She has to read lips, and everybody is wearing a mask sometimes. Especially now. So, but it seems like sometimes she doesn't want me to tell anybody, but other times she's like more comfortable with me talking about, being disabled. Do you feel like you would be in the same place that you are now if it wasn't for that, or? Like,
I mean, it's one of those things. It's really hard to say because it's not like I had the option. Like my disability is from birth, so it's not like I knew a time before that, and then this happened, and then this is kind of where I went. I would like to say yes because I think a lot of like my wits and all that kind of stuff is kind of
brain's your brain.
I think that's inherently with me, but I might not have needed to go down that path. For me. The way I didn't get made fun of when I was a kid was I was the funny guy. I was so much better at making jokes than anybody else was. It was a survival tactic, It was
a muscle you worked on.
Exactly. So would I have had to do that? Would I have ever worked on that muscle if I was quote unquote normal? It's hard to say, So I try not to go down that route too much because it's shit in one hand, wish in the other, and see which one fills up faster kind of situation. It's not going to happen, So I would like to think I would still be clever, but I don't know if I would have got America's Got Talent or get to do this for a living at this. I'd be selling insurance with Flegs, maybe. Who knows?
Sure. No, and she very much struggles with not being able to hear, but she tells me all the time she wouldn't trade it for anything. Like she's still like good with where her life is.
Yeah, I mean, because like a part, it's not a thing I have. It's also who I am, if that
Sure.
makes sense. It's not
Yeah.
like this burden that I kind of, or like this thing that I kind of turn on and off depending on when it benefits me or not. Kind of the example I'll give. So I won't lie to anybody and say that I got into comedy or became like a performer or a personality so that I could spread disability awareness or whatever, or become that. I'm an egomaniac who just wants to make money and get laughs. Like that's kind of where this starts from initially. But once I like aired on AGT, the amount of emails and tweets and DMs and stuff I got from people who either have disabilities or their kids have disabilities, who were like so thankful to see someone like them on television.
Awesome.
Like that's a big deal. So it's one of the things, like, I didn't seek out to be that guy. It's not like and my act isn't inspiration porn. It's not like you can do anything you want. That's not who I am as a person. But like representation matters, and like I'm a part of that community whether I want to be or not, and like that matters. So like I can't just turn this off, and especially with my disability. You kind of mentioned your girl, she's hard of hearing. I'm not saying she should have to do this, but in theory, if she just wants a day, like she doesn't have to acknowledge that in public per se. Not everybody has to know that in theory. If she goes to the grocery store, she can just buy her stuff, go to the self-checkout, be gone. No one knows one way or the other. I don't have that option. I don't get to, I'm not going to wear Hulk hands or something, to cover it up. I'm always the weird arm guy, even if I'm just trying to go buy, something at the grocery store.
Right.
So like that weighs on you a little bit. And me being in a position that I was to be able to show other people that like, just because you have to deal with that shit, you can still get positive things done. You can still make things happen. Like that was very important to me.
So you're obviously doing really well in comedy and touring and all that, and we love to see you. But have you ever thought about like swimming in any other streams, like getting into writing or getting into like acting or anything like that? Everybody wants to be an actor in LA. I don't know if that's the case, but is there anything else like you've kind of considered professionally? Any areas you'd like to go?
Oh, wherever things take me. I love stand up, but I'll be honest. I don't want to be 80 years old still having to be a road dog, doing this kind of stuff. It's exhausting. As much as I love stand up, man, I hate being on the road all the time. I hate airports. I hate rental cars. I hate all that. Like the pandemic, especially, it really hammered home. Like, turns out I love hanging out with my wife, and I love my dog, and I love my video games. I want to be around them more,
Life is good. Yeah.
Would you like to be a show writer? Is that a thing that you would like to do?
Something like that. If I could get that job, I would love to do it. I'm not going to say it's what I want to do, but I'm open to it. I've auditioned for stuff when I was out here. I have a theater degree, so I have a background in stage theater. I'm working on some video game YouTube stuff. I would love, as much as I love stand up, and I would never quit it completely. It's part of my personality. But I also don't know if I want to be on the road 48 weeks a year.
Sure.
For, my wife and I are trying to have a kid. I don't want to miss everything because I have to tell dick jokes in Des Moines, like.
Oh, come on, man.
And I'm saying, and I love performing in Des Moines, but like I love my family more.
Don't lie. You don't have to lie. It's okay.
So it's one of those things that
if I didn't have to live in Iowa, I wouldn't be here.
Fair. I legitimately do. I do Iowa probably 2 or 3 times a year. I do like Davenport and Des Moines, and I enjoy it. But like ultimately, I would rather. I want to be home more. So if I could get a show writing, I just don't have any like writing credits really. It's hard to break into that world. But like I would love to do more stuff like that if it let me be home a little bit more. But if the worst thing I have to go through is I have to travel and make a lot of money telling jokes, like poor me. But my diamond necklace is so heavy.
So I think in the essence of time, trying to keep it concise, do you have anything to plug? Are you going anywhere here recently? Any upcoming projects or anything?
Well, I have my own podcast that I do with my buddy Johnny LaQuasto, who I've known since I started. I think I met him a month into my comedy career out in LA. He's a really funny comic, and he's also he does like pro wrestling announcing. So he was with
Nice.
WWE for a little while. He got released during when COVID started. He was one of the first people that kind of got bumped there. But he does a lot of that. And then Indiana's own Brent Terhune is also on the podcast.
Okay.
Everybody knows Brent as the angry redneck character.
Get off my lawn!
Yeah, do that. Brent's the best. So we do a podcast called The Cafeteria, which you can do everywhere. Basically, the kind of premise of the podcast is kind of trying to go back to like when you were in high school and maybe you don't have classes with your friends, and the first time you get to see them during the day is at the cafeteria table. So you bring all of the dumb shit you thought of in the morning.
That's
the table.
So sometimes it'll be like, more serious conversations about like the state of comedy or like whatever. And sometimes it'll be like, okay, what's the largest animal you think you could beat in a fight? And then we kind of talk about it. So I would recommend going there. Crippledthreat.com is my website. Cripplethreat8 is my social media, all this stuff. You can see my tour dates. I don't know when this goes on the air.
Thursday.
Okay, so if you happen to hear this Thursday and you're in Dallas, Friday I'm in Dallas and Saturday I'm in Fort Worth, and then next week I'm in Burbank, California. You can get ticket information at cripplethreat.com. Come see me on tour and give me lots of money so that I can stay home more. That's the real goal. If you just want to Venmo me money, I'll also allow that too. You can I'm not too proud. Just give me a large sack with a $sign on it. Whatever.
There you
Make
go.
it work.
Well, we appreciate you joining us tonight, Ryan.
Absolutely.
It was a pleasure to have you. Love to have you on again if you're willing. And we are the Anomalies. Again, I'm Flegs at JJ Flagle. We got Marco in Iowa, K Pasa Primo, super producer Tyler Allen, and of course Cripple Threat. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have an awesome night, dude.
Absolutely. Thank you. We'll do it again sometime. If there's a little less Tyler, he kind of got on my nerves a little bit. He was really. Let's fucking go.
I almost pushed a button.
I'd fuck in a mineral spring.
Is he?
Oh, God. I'm so sorry.
Brian.
Fuck off. Don't invite me to your career day.
Why can't we start a cult?
Yeah, you ate the shrimp and had Jack Daniels, and you got fucked up.
I remember he's so good, Tyler.